Okay, so we finished up with right-of-way, and now we are going to move on to processing cross-section sheets. Now again, the order of some of this, could be changed around a little bit, but I'm just going with, I guess, my standard sequence whenever I'm personally developing a project. Oftentimes I think even before I've run the proposed corridor, it's nice to have cross sections on sheets, just to, as a design tool, just one more resource to make decisions as I start to develop my templates. So let's do that. Okay, we're going to go to ProjectWise, the CAD sheets, and we will create a cross-section file. So we will go to File, New. Make sure that we're pointing to the right folder. And so we've moved over to CAD Sheets now, so I want to create this file in the CAD Sheets folder. I'm going to change the name of the seed file to, like always, D6 for District 6, and then 7 to K96. Oh, I should probably mention that recently some of the districts have been leaving off the district, the D6, and just going with the contract number. So whatever it is, we just use basically the same as whatever your ProjectWise folder was called. In my case, it was D6, so I'm keying that in. So the file name is just SHT for sheet, and then cross-sec. And in description, we'll just write cross-section file. We'll say OK. And then once that file is created, we go to our CAD Sheets folder. And then we're going to open up the CAD Sheets file. Not CAD Sheets file, but cross-section sheet file. And this part is kind of similar to when we set up the plan sheets. We first start off by just referencing whatever files that we want to show up in the cross-sections. So that's usually just the alignment. Could be the topo. Let's see, in this case, the 2D, like I had mentioned previously, sometimes the topo and the terrain is one and the same. On this particular project, they were separated out. So I'm also going to point to the terrain. We could bring in the topo 2D. It's not really going to show up in the cross sections, but it might make for a good reference. And then, of course, we want the right-of-way to show up just so when the annotation is automatically placed for the right-of-way on the cross sections, that it'll get that information of the location from that right-of-way file, as we talked in the previous video. So I will say OK. And we'll just do a fit view. Zoom into our area of interest here. And yeah, right now, if you look at your models in this file, you'll notice that there's only the default model, right? But for cross sections, you are going to need the 3D model. And so in order to create that 3D model within this 2D file, all we do is we select that terrain. And once we make that the active terrain, you'll notice then that it automatically creates a 3D view. So in fact, now when I hold my right mouse button down, go to View Control, View Plan 3D, Release, and always in View 1, then we're going to see the 3D view, the 2D view in View 2. And in fact, we can rotate this 3D view. Of course, before we rotate it, notice up at the very top of these windows, see how on window 2 it's like a dark blue, in window 1 it's a lighter blue? Well, the way this works is that whatever view that you want to work with, you need to make that the active view. Like in this case, I want to rotate it in 3D, so I need to let it know, okay, work like I'm actually sitting in the 3D view. Then I just go to View Rotate. I'm in the dynamic mode. I take this crosshair, snap it to something so we don't shoot off into outer space. And then I can move that around if I like. And if I like, you know, of course we can visualize that terrain in different ways. By default, it's just the boundary. But of course I could go into and override my symbology. I could turn on and off manually triangles or contours or any of this information. Or I can even override the template and just select one that maybe includes contours if that's of interest. There you go. So as you work, you may or may not want these items turned on. Actually, I think for now I'm just going to leave it turned off. Okay. So here we go. When we develop our cross sections, we need to be both in the 2D and the 3D at the same time. We're mostly going to be placing our name boundaries, though, in this 3D view. So let me show you how this works, though. It's somewhat similar to plan sheets, but a little bit different. We just go into our OpenRoads modeling workflow, and then plans, production, name boundaries. And then we pick this fourth icon over, cross sections. And then under our drawing seed, we decide if we want the cross-section sheet to be landscape or portrait. We'll go with landscape. We'll go with 5 scale, I think. We'll see if how that works. Sometimes we use 5, sometimes we use 10. Just depends on, you know, what we need to fit on the sheet. Of course, the smaller the scale you go, the least width, I guess, of the cross section that you're going to see, but you'll see it in more detail. Okay, just like plan sheets, next we need to identify our start location. So first, we need to click on the alignment, and then we'll start our cross sections up here towards the top. But of course, we had mentioned that the beginning of the job was resurfacing only, so we didn't have a terrain up there. Really, our terrain didn't start until after this crossroad culvert. And in fact, yeah, right around here is actually where we started. Yeah, there's that existing riprap that we know we're going to tie into. So let's start just a little before that. We'll go with a nice even station. Now, almost immediately, we're going to hit a station equation, so let's see what happens there. By default, we're at an interval of 50, which is fine. And then let's see what happens. I forget if it corrects itself. It does. Yeah, that's a nice new feature here. So notice that in plan sheets doesn't do this, but cross sections do. So notice we went through a station equation, and then it readjusted the interval right there at the station equation. So we continue to place our stations or our cross sections on even stations. And so this particular project it just runs through this curve. I should have turned on my proposed line work, then I could see exactly where I am, but I believe that's it. Right around here at 340. We'll go with that. Let's see, our vertical exaggeration is at 2. That's fine. Okay. I like it. So, at this point I can still adjust those name boundaries, but then once I data point, notice that they show up over here in the 3D view, because that's where the 3D view is actually saved. And so it's basically just showing you that a cross section is not like what we used to cross sections where they were actually elements. All a cross section is in ORD is simply just basically a visualization of cutting through that model. Okay, so now that I've got my cross-section name boundaries, the next step is I go back to in the lower right-hand corner of name boundaries. And sometimes it doesn't show up immediately for whatever reason. I've noticed that. Let's see if it'll show up the second time. And it does. Yeah, it's strange. But that seems to be consistently that way. Okay. So I'm going to expand the cross-section group. There's my group. You can see all the cross sections here where, at this point I could delete ones if there were certain ones that I did not want to include. I could come back later and add additional name boundaries, to this particular group name. But we're just going to go with this for now. And so let's just like we did on plan sheets, we're going to go up to this pencil where it says show the create drawing dialog. We want that turned on. And then we're going to right click and select create cross section drawing. Okay, it's going to bring up the dialog. And then let's look at this annotation group. It's by default set to 10. We're going to change that to 5. And then in our annotation group here, we will set that to, let's see, where'd it go? Here we go. Let me expand that out one more time. We're actually going to go with this one that says 10 and 5, because that, in this case, we got a couple different options. There is a new option here, you'll see. If we use the 10 and 5, that's really just a ratio. It means that, the cross sections are vertically, exaggerated by 2. Some of the districts like to show a 5 and 2. So if that was the case back when I set my vertical exaggeration, so that would not have been by 2. It would be by what? It would be, is it 0.4? I need to do the math. I don't know what that is offhand. I'd have to look that up because I typically use the 10 and 5. So anyway, let's use that. Let's use 10 and 5 for now. And again, we're going to change that to 1 inch equals 5 on the scale. And then we're ready to go. I usually leave this add to sheet index off for now until I'm happy with what the result, and then I'll add it to the sheet index later. So we say OK. And so now it's doing something similar to it did with plan sheets. It's creating like a view type model, and then it's also creating a sheets model, and that's runs fairly quick here. So even though there's a bunch of cross sections, so there we go. Well, that's the last one anyway. Let's jump to one here in the middle somewhere. You can see that we have not modeled our existing pavement yet. And this grid might look a little bit different if I would have used that other option, and that may be preferred. I guess I just haven't made the switch to that. I'm still on this 10 and 5 because, for so many years we just exaggerated the vertical by 2, not by 1.5, I think it is. Again, let me look that up to make sure because I don't typically use it. But notice this. Notice what showed up. This is part of our annotation group. See, our cells for our right-of-way were placed, and we said this many times now. You know how that cell knew to be placed right there, and that was because we profiled the right-of-way line. Because we have a right-of-way file, we featurized the right-of-way, we complexed it, and then we attached the terrain, made that the active terrain, and then we made that complexed right-of-way line the active profile. And that's what's required in order to get this automated annotation. And in this particular case, the annotation showed up just because it's part of this that cross-section sheet process that we ran. We selected this annotation group to be included all in one and the same in this process. Now, it doesn't have to be that way necessarily. You can actually, after you've already processed your sheets, it is possible to go back and run an annotation group, and I'll show you that later on, but in this case it just came with it. And then if we would like to go ahead and populate all this information here, we can do so in the sheet title block. And again, that's because, well, actually we can't. That's only if this was in the sheet index. I may actually typically wait for that until I've added, like, say, cross sections at entrances. I get it just right, and then I might just reprocess the sheets, that sort of thing. But while we're here, let me just do a little refresher on how that we go about doing that. We'll probably remove the sheets from the index and re-add them later, but this is good learning experience here. So I'm going to go up to the sheet index, and under roadway, see, we've got our cross sections there. And then what I'll do there is I'll just go into the edit mode, which I click that pencil, add sheets. I select this cross section sheet that I'm in at the moment, which is in let's see, a different folder here. It's in that sheets, CAD sheets folder under sheet cross section. I say OK, and then it's going to show me all the cross section sheets that are available. And I can select all or part. I'll just do them all. I don't think it takes that long. So we'll say OK. And so now all of the cross-section sheets are being added to the sheet index. And notice right as it added those sheets to the sheet index that it then automatically populated that title block, which was very nice. Now, let's see. I noticed it did not populate the section area. Let's check on that. Let's see if we had populated that section. I don't remember offhand. It may just not be filled in. So if I go up to the root and then to properties, I can look here under section number, and I can see that I did not populate that section number, and that's why it didn't show up. But if I went back at any point in time, keyed in whatever that section number is, and then normally it just automatically shows up on all my sheets, but if it ever doesn't, then what you do is you just right click on the root, and then you say update sheet model properties, and then it would pull all of the current information and automatically populate your title blocks. As far as like the name of the sheet, you also have the option there of, if you've got a bunch of different sheet names, you might just key in the name direct into the sheet cell itself. But normally you're working with a grouping of sheets, and they're all the same name. And so it's faster really to just go to cross-section sheets, select all of those sheets. Right click, go to properties. Again, you have to be in that edit mode, but then down at the bottom of the sheet where it says sheet title line 1 and line 2, then I can type in whatever I like here. Cross-section sheets. You may put the route in the second line, whatever you want to do, or leave it blank. I'll hit enter. And so this way, you know, I only had to key that in one time, which was you know, very efficient, I guess, with my time, because now it's just automatically populating all the other sheets with that information, or at least populating all the cross-section sheets. So if there's the text. In fact, you can see that I can go to any of the sheets and I can see that the title block information was populated, which is very nice. Okay, we're going to stop the video there.